Spoiler warnings up ahead, a lot of bosses are going to be seen dying from this broken setup, and to be honest with you, it kinda makes the game look a little boring with how easily everything around me falls. So if you guys want to see the absolute best setup possible and what it's capable of, just keep watching. Before I get into the build, I want to thank the sponsors of today's video, Bloodline Heroes of Lithis. Create your own unique legendary champions by combining bloodlines like elves, demons, demigods, orcs, dwarves, dragonborn, vampires, and much more. With its innovative air system and breathtaking visuals, Bloodline takes RPGs and gacha gameplay to an entirely new level. Also, it's absolutely free to play, so download it now using the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen if you're viewing this on a PC. You'll get a special starter pack that comes with 1 summoning crystal, 100,000 gold, and 100 diamonds. The first 30 players who leave their in-game account ID and username get a free champion, the Luxurant, one of the best mages to carry you in the game. A fantasy world game with visually stunning 3D realistic graphics where you can find yourself the best companions and raise heirs. You can collect tons of new fantasy characters that are released into the game every fortnight with sleek designs. And if that wasn't enough, you can customize your champions by marrying into any 2 bloodlines in the game, such as elves, orcs, demons, demigods, dragonborn, vampires, and more to create over 800 new fantasy hybrids. The hybrids not only inherit their talents and traits, but also their unique appearances passed down from each family tree and merged into one. All players can enjoy battling in the new Guild War on brand new maps, conquer territories with your guild members, and claim rewards to create the most unique hybrid champions called Bloodcraft Legends. The Luxus Tournament is a competitive event where players deploy champions with a goal of winning battles and advancing through various stages. Players who have played the game over 120 days are qualified to join the Luxus Tournament. The tournament features a rotating tournament aura, champion suspension voting, and a qualifying stage where players gain or lose arena points. The top 64 players enter the knockout stage, followed by the final stage and grand finals. Download the game now for free on both Android and iOS, and use my link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen if you're viewing on a PC, and you get a special starter pack worth $20. Starting off with the weapons, we're going to grab not 1, but 2 Jeffrey's daggers, 1 for each hand. If you can only get your hands on one of these, not to worry, you can still copy this setup. The daggers themselves are honestly not good at all, well, in terms of them doing damage by themselves, but luckily that's not the reason we got them. I actually picked them for their ability to socket any 3 runes on them, whether that's an Inferno, Radiance, Strength, or Agility. You're going to want to pay close attention here because this is very important. The runes you socket on the daggers are the Alistrix runes. Each one increases the damage of ranged and throwable weapons by 10%. If you're able to get 6 of them and place them on both daggers, that's a 60% damage buff. I don't think I need to tell you that that's huge, but that's pretty huge. Getting 2 of these daggers and 6 of the Alistrix runes is not an easy task to handle though. So if you want to use 1 Jeffrey's dagger and the Anvil Hammer in your main hand, that's the next best thing. The Anvil Hammer has 2 strength rune sockets, which is what we need in order to place the Alistrix runes. Sadly, not a 3rd one, but that's not too bad for a secondary option, and this thing actually does decent damage on top of that. Well, the decent damage just comes from it having horrible scaling with literally every stat, but to make up for that, the game devs give these types of weapons a lot of upfront damage. So even with stats like mine that look completely horrendous, weapons like this can still do some good damage. And don't look at my stats right now without the full context of the build, they won't make any sense at all. So keep watching to find out why I did them like that, cause this is another big factor. Anyways, continuing on to the most important part of this build, and that's the throwables. The way I'm completely blowing up bosses and plowing through the regular guys and basically just doing whatever I want to is with the help of the corrupted banner javelin. This thing is completely busted again. And for those of you who don't know what it is, picture a regular javelin that you throw at people, except when it hits the ground, it leaves behind this pulsing effect that damages anyone that gets too close to it. The reason this weapon is so busted is not just because of its good damage, you know, nothing too special, but capable enough of taking out some of the stronger guys, but for the fact you can throw this thing out so rapidly, you toss out this barrage of javelins that melt people instantly. And if that wasn't enough, all those javelins that got thrown out are now in the ground, leaving behind that pulsing effect, rapidly damaging anyone that steps in it. And it's not like only one of them can damage people, no. If there's 5 of them in the ground and someone steps into them, they're now taking damage from all 5 of them together. This thing destroys everything, and I'm not even done either. It's also got this crazy stagger effect that pushes people away from you and into the previous javelins that you threw at them, but are now in the ground behind them pulsing because they went through whoever you hit. Yeah, you can stunlock people and push them back into the other javelins. I think that sums it up pretty good. The Corrupted Banner Javelin is a must-have thing for this setup, and the other throwables I use are the Enhanced Banner Javelin of Protection and the Javelin of Assault. One of them increases my damage when I'm standing in its zone, and the other one heals me. They're just like nice additions since I have so much ammo and I can save myself the use of a health charge with the Banner of Protection. And the Assault one is just if I want some more damage, but honestly, I don't really use it that much because the Corrupted Banner Javelin already does so much on its own. Maybe not entirely on its own, because I do have a few things buffing it like the rings and pendant, and later on another thing that fully destroys bosses in just seconds. But for now, let's get into the jewelry. For the pendant, we're gonna grab the Scornful Effigy. You'll lose 50% of your max HP in exchange for a 25% damage buff to all attacks. So the hammer and the Corrupted Banner Javelin get this buff, and you can see it doesn't even affect my playstyle that much because I still have a lot of health left. If you can't get this, grabbing Rogart's Delight is the next best thing. It increases all fire damage by around 10%, and the javelin deals mostly fire damage. Then for the rings, getting 2 Slinger Rings is going to increase the damage for all throwables by 10% each. In total, I'm getting a 20% damage boost from them, and they also increase the damage of the pulsing effect when the javelin hits the ground. I wish I had a backup option for this since getting 2 of them can be difficult, so if you can only grab 1 of them, just toss on whatever other rings you have. Now that way I mentioned of destroying bosses in a matter of seconds is through the use of the Umbral Eyes. There's 2 main ones you can use, either the Umbral Eye of Lydia the Numb Witch that gives you infinite ammo for the exchange of withered health, but you can get that withered health right back easily, so yeah, basically infinite ammo. Or the Eye of Lorello the Cursed Knight that increases the Soulflay stun duration, which is how you can kill bosses extremely fast. Either tons of damage or tons of ammo. Keep in mind that this build is going to have a lot of ammo, enough to toss out 10 javelins before running out. Then in the secondary slots, using the Eye of the Pale Butcher and Olerin to increase the damage I do to a Soulflayed enemy by 50%, 25% each. If you go the route for more damage by getting the Eye of Lorello the Cursed Knight, it's really easy to pull off. So if you put the pieces together, you first Soulflay an enemy and try to line up their soul with their physical form so they're in a straight line. Then start tossing out the javelin, and what I notice is that it'll penetrate the soul form doing damage to it and then hitting the physical form and doing damage again. So it's pretty much doing 2 times the damage with just that. And if you have the secondary eyes equipped, the Pale Butcher and Olerin, they give off another 50% damage boost. You can still do this even with the Eyes of Lydia the Numb Witch, the one that gives you infinite ammo, but it is a lot harder to do since you have a smaller window to line up your target and start throwing out the javelins. Still, completely up to you for which one you choose. When it comes to using this setup, the most effective thing to do is to just toss out javelins at literally anyone, no matter how close they are to you, because the daggers themselves don't do any damage, so you can't really depend on those, and you can throw out javelins extremely quickly. The only time I'd use my weapons is if I'm running the Anvil Hammer, which, when you think about it, is an amazing backup choice, because in reality, you're only losing a 10% damage buff on the javelin since it has 2 strength slots and not 3, but in return, you're getting a fully functional weapon, and a good one too. Aside from the damage part of this build, you should also use the Banner Javelin of Protection to heal yourself up. Even if you don't have the Eye of Lydia the Numb Witch for infinite ammo, you find ammo satchels everywhere in the game, and those can now turn into extra heals instead of using the health charges that can only be refilled at Vestiges. And you guys already know about the Soul Flaying, basically a free way of getting ridiculous amounts of damage off with ease. Now before I get into the stats, I want to quickly mention the types of armor to use with this setup because this can affect your playstyle a lot. If you guys notice, my character has no weight at all since we're dual wielding daggers. I mean, if you're not using the anvil hammer, but even with that on, we still have a really low amount of weight to deal with, and this gives us a lot of freedom for the armor. If you guys want to be tanky and be able to absorb more hits, then grabbing the heaviest stuff you can find is gonna work best. You can still regular roll with it all on, and it won't feel like anything has changed. You also get the best looking armor in the game, so if aesthetic is more of your thing, then go right ahead. But if you want a lot more mobility, grabbing a mix of medium and light armor is gonna allow you to roll farther distances, just creating more space between you and whoever you're fighting a lot quicker. This effect is extremely beneficial for range focus builds because you never want to be up close with whoever you're fighting, and this is the best thing for creating a large gap. Obviously, you're gonna be sacrificing armor for mobility, but it's something you can play around with to see which one you prefer more of. Oh, and if you're going with the mobility, make sure your equip load stays within the light range to get that enhanced roll. Finally, for the stats, this looks extremely weird, but the bare minimum you'll need is 18 strength if you plan on using the hammer, 15 agility for the daggers, and 8 inferno to use the corrupted banner javelin. After that, the only stat you should level up is vitality to increase your max health and level that up as much as you can, because the pendant we use takes away 50% of our max health for a 25% damage buff, and since none of the weapons have any kind of good scaling with the attributes, leveling anything else up wouldn't help out that much, except for the daggers, but again, we don't really use those. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out my other build guides.